AusArmour Fest this year was our biggest and best yet, but unfortunately I didn't get the coverage I would have liked since I was given other duties over the event. But luckily, Steve has come to the rescue once again with his trusty GoPro and caught some of the tune-up of the HL230 original Panther engine. So that's what we're going to be showing you today. Hi, I'm Kurt from AusArmour and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. The Panther is the centerpiece of the show, but she tends to cough and sputter a bit, and we're almost certain we're not getting everything we can out of this beautiful original engine. So it's time to pull the rear decks off and get stuck in. We're very lucky that combat dealer stars Nick and Phil gave us a lifetime warranty on the Panther and are here once again to give us a helping hand.
Like a snorkel that goes right down in there. The idea is you bolt it and turn it up the other way so it faces upwards. Yep. That is going right down inside. Right. So I'll have to take that out.
So we've certainly got a bit of a treat going on here. Taking advantage of Nick and Phil's knowledge, we're going to give the Panther a bit of a check of the ignition system while they're here. And this is something you don't see every day. So this is the snorkel that's used for fording deep water. So what we're trying to do here is to take the deck off so that we can get access to the magnetos and the plug wires, and we've got to take that, lift the snorkel out. So that's how it would fit if you were trying to wading the tank.
Yeah, it'll wade up to 2 meters.
Wow, that's interesting. All right, next step is taking the deck up.
Okay, yep.
Feast your eyes on that. And also the beautiful workmanship. And I'm not just saying it because Nick and Phil are here and one of them's got a big lump of steel in their hand, but beautifully put together and restored. We'll lift off the spark plug covers, take out the spark plugs, inspect them, lift off the covers off the magnetos. Are very similar to the ones that are on the flak half track with the HL230. Inspect the caps, the rotor buttons, do a continuity test to the plug leads to make sure that they're not high resistance or anything like that. Check the points gap and those sort of things, and see if we can also check the timing of the magnetos as well too. So quite a few jobs to do. And the twins are just explaining to me that as part of the wading system on the vehicle, that the sides of the tank are designed to actually fill up with water while the vehicle is wading, and you've got a declutching mechanism here which turns off the cooling fan so the radiator fans aren't pulling water through, but the water being in there keeps the engine cool, which is pretty clever. And there's some sort of a pneumatic bladder which goes around the circumference of the turret, which then pumps up and keeps water out of the turret. So it's a pretty clever sort of a system. Not particularly simple, but clever.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get the plugs off, and I guess the first thing is to have a look at the condition of the plugs to see if there's any sort of cylinders that are looking a bit different.
They should have snap rings on them so they don't come right out.
Yep.
In theory.
So I think I can remember last year you did put some new plugs in it, didn't you?
Yeah. You just need to check, see how they're burning really.
Yeah. So these cables are what they've got is silicon outer, but copper core, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you pass me my multimeter? I'll just double check it.
Yeah, sure. That's what we actually got in the end.
Yep. Yeah, so that's spot on.
Yeah.
That's dead close to zero resistance, so we know that that's good. Try and keep them in order. It's not terrible, but it's actually the electrodes and the insulator are nowhere near as clean as the ones coming out of the other side, so maybe this bank does run a bit richer than the other one.
That's the second carbon. Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. That spark plug's nice and clean. That might even be a bit too clean, considering this has just been sort of started up and idled and things like that. It might be a bit too.
It does start very easily. It does start.
Yeah.
Really, literally bang straight.
Yeah.
And that's without choke.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's clean again as well too. So out of the, I guess you'd call it the left-hand bank, the colour looks pretty good. They're all consistent. Where out of the right-hand bank, the front 3 cylinders might even be, fuel mixture might be a little bit too lean, and the rears might be a touch rich.
The left-hand bank is always an issue with these.
Yeah.
Because of the heat build-up. That's why they have all the extra air. That's why they have the 2 extra pipes around.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So what happens is that air is forced past that to keep the engine cooler.
Right. Yep.
That's why they did it. So that side was always an issue. If it was going to get hot, that was the side that was going to do it.
Oh, so it just naturally heat accumulates for some reason on that particular
on that
side.
bank. Yeah.
Okay. Close-up of the Magneto. Yeah, it's very similar to the Magneto out of the HL230 out of our flat half track. Pretty detailed schematic showing firing orders and timing marks and stuff on the Magneto, but first thing we can do is adjust the points gap. So about 13th thou is the points gap.
What Steve is adjusting here is the points gap. This is a part of the magneto that controls the amount of time it has to build up an electrical charge for the high voltage spark that ignites the fuel-air mixture in the engine.
So this is about take 23. I'm trying to get screws undone, so this really shits me because stuff's done up and it's unnecessarily tight.
After a lot of fiddling around, Steve got the points gap adjusted to spec and dived back into the job the next day.
Back on the cat. What I want to do right now is just to capture the firing order of how the plug leads are connected up to the magnetos. The engine's always sort of popped and banged a little bit out of the left-hand side, and it just hasn't sounded completely crisp. So we just want to check firing order, plug lead connections, contact points adjusted correctly, and also see if we can check the actual timing of the magneto to the engines. On each magneto there's a data plate here which shows the cylinder connection depending on which direction the cap comes out. So the cap is sort of symmetrical in that it can be turned in opposite direction, but if you turn in an opposite direction, corresponding cylinders are different. So I just want to see how that's connected and to make sure that it actually follows the convention. So cylinder number 1, which should be this one here. It's obviously this one here. This is where an octopus would have life easy. And at the same time too, I'm checking the relative resistance between it as well too, because yeah, magnetos hate plug leads with a high resistance. number 2, which it isn't. Off camera I went through some of the tedious sort of process of duplicating what I did on the right hand bank of cylinders, and I sort of worked out that the data plate on the magneto actually identifies the order of firing, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which then corresponds to the engine cylinder 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4, which just happens to be the firing order of a 6. Now I was doing the same thing on the left hand side, and I found all the cylinders except cylinder number 11. And this is pretty interesting actually. So I've got my multimeter in there. So this contact here is the 3rd to fire. And I've got 0 continuity. So if I check inside here is a screw which holds down the plug lead to the contact. If I check that internally to the high voltage contact, I've got perfect continuity. It says to me that there's a break in the wire between the cap and the end of the spark plug. This has got screw-in spark plug extensions. And would you look at that, eh? Dead as a doornail. Now, that's something I wouldn't normally expect, because I don't think there's much inside here. It's just a contact, but for whatever reason it's as dead as a doornail. God bless magnetic torches. Otherwise that hull monster would have taken this forever. Yeah, so not much to see in here. I think it's weird that there's no connection. We're getting close to testing after replacing the faulty plug extension.
Earlier, Steve was setting the points gap. Now he has to synchronise when the points open.
So this gives everyone a pretty good idea of the sort of things that the technicians and even the tank crews would have to do on a regular basis, and that's, you know, when they're checking the tune of the engine right at the back of the engine compartment. You've got to contort yourself into a position. You've got this access hole in here, and you get the timing mark set. So you've got the engine mechanically at 5 degrees before top dead center.
Steve carefully rotates the magnetos to align with the position of the engine. Once the buzzer sounds, the position is correct and the unit can be screwed into place.
It's the right hand side magneto is very close. It's only a couple of degrees out. From what I can tell, it's the left hand side one that's actually out of fair way. We've spent more time than we actually thought that we would need to, so playing around with the timing of this particular magneto, because it was significantly out compared to the other one. The other one was only a few degrees out, so it's just a light adjustment. But this one took quite a lot of playing around to get the positioning of it correctly, so that we could get the mag triggering at the right point for number 12 cylinder. So that's back in, and we're pretty confident that it's good to go. So let's start her up and see if we can make some noise.
When you're ready.
Okay.
Sound a little bit better. but there are just a few more adjustments to make to get this beast as close to perfect as possible.
A few more tasty treats for the enthusiast. So there's 4 carburetors, and it includes mechanical secondaries, and there's also a governor system to limit engine RPM. Not at all complicated, huh? There we go. There you go.
Would you want over here?
There's no real signs of fuel leakage. This is a fuel shut-off here for oil pressure, isn't it? This unit here.
Yeah, that will shut the oil off.
So I'm guessing that
Shut the fuel
this diaphragm unit here is part of either the governor, is it, or the vacuum, or the secondary?
The governor's under the middle there. Under that.
And so the governor is under here. So this must be perhaps to do with the secondaries. But you would never drive this on full throttle though, would you?
No, I've never used full throttle.
I'm going to start the engine up and run it at a fast idle, and then let the engine slow down, check to see if we maybe have an issue with a float problem inside these carbies on this side, because it's chugging out black smoke from there. Just thinking that maybe we might need to tweak the idle mixtures a bit to get them a bit better balanced so that it's a bit cleaner when it's idling.
You ready, Nick?
Been able to identify that the balance of the carbs is out. So this venturi on the right hand bank is drawing a lot of air, this venturi on the left hand bank is drawing a lot of air, and the opposing venturis are not drawing as much air. So we've slackened off the locking screws. We're going to have a look to see what impact that has on the balance between the carbs, so that we can get the individual banks drawing the same amount of air, and then we'll have a look at the synchronisation between the left and right bank, and then once we've got the airflow basically right in the idle speed where we want it, we'll then play around with some idle mixture. Start the engine up and we'll let it idle.
Yeah.
And I'll try not to bugger it up.
Okay.
What Steve is doing here is listening to the air flowing through the venturis in the carburetors. If the airflow differs between them, Steve will need to adjust them to make sure they each sound the same. It's an old-fashioned way of doing things, but it is a very old-fashioned engine.
Are you ready?
So yeah, whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
The fuel mixture and final idle speed can be set, but adjusting these carbies are a little bit different to normal.
It works in reverse.
Yeah.
So
The more you wind it in.
out, the more you wind it in, the richer it is. So it's an air bypass rather than a
Right,
fuel bleed. Most idle mixtures work
The
by
other way around, don't
other way around.
it? Yeah.
It's metering the amount of air that gets mixed with the fuel going into the idle circuit, because if you screw the adjuster out, it leans it off. Screwing it in richens it up. So because that smoothed out quite a bit then. And now we've got to have a go at trying to balance the individual cylinder banks so that there's a locking screw with a adjuster on there, and that's what actually sets the balance between the two banks. Now this right hand bank was running a bit faster or drawing more air than the left hand bank. So I've loosened that off. I guess we'll start the engine back up again. I'll go through the process of checking the balance between the banks. Yep. Get my special tool. adjusted the main
Yeah.
accelerator linkage one turn to bring the idle speed down.
Yeah.
So we'll crank it up, get the thing running, check to see how it's going.
Now after all that tuning up, we're going to give it a quick outing on the concrete.
Reverse him up. Discussing amongst ourselves, so as part of the 10-year anniversary celebrations for AusArmour here, we're offering 10% off on all HL230 services for the next 6 months. So bring them in and we'll look after them for you. If it's a HL230 fitted to a Tiger, it's only 7.5% off, but yeah, come and get it while they're fresh.
It was a fantastic AusArmour Fest weekend. Steve and the rest of the crew worked incredibly hard all year in preparation for it. Seeing, hearing and feeling the rumble of all that hard work paying off was really terrific.
Sitting here on top of the 88, and the 88 is literally shaking underneath me from all of the tanks going past. It's brilliant. Been a pretty good day all in all. Most of the exhibits behaved themselves fairly well, so pretty happy about that, pretty happy with that.
We do have some incredible content planned for the coming weeks. I'm also very pleased to announce that from now on, there will be a short weekly walkthrough on Thursdays where we'll check in on every project and answer some questions from the previous night's Workshop Wednesday. that's all we have time for today. Join us tomorrow for your weekly workshop update. So until then, I'm Kurt from AusArmour. See you on the next one.